Thanks for sending these swings. I'm excited to get started. So how this will work today, I'll just kind of go through so you can sort of see what I see. I'm sure you've obviously seen your swing. We'll look at some things together. And then the second part, I'm going to hop on camera and give you some one-on-one feedback that way to kind of quarterback off of what we did here. So the first thing, obviously you got a great setup, centered, balanced, very athletic. I like everything about it. It looks very good. Now you said you have a tendency to sort of, well, you're coming off of someone who told you to turn and then swing left. And then you're working on your shoulder turn, working on getting the bigger wind up. So that's all good stuff. So I'll start this on the right as you take the club back. As you can see here, the club gets a touch, a little bit inside the club head. I'll talk more about this in the second part. But when you look at where this club is in terms of planing out the backswing, it's kind of, what I'd look for here is the club to be more trending up the right forearm or just above the right forearm, because anytime the club head gets this far outside of your the center of your arms, it starts to get out of balance. So what happens is on this side of the golf swing's arc, the club is sort of in this direction of your center. So what happens is if it's that far outside of your center, then on the through swing it's going to throw or overthrow in this direction coming down. So that would be sort of post impact. So then you've got the club sort of flipping or rolling or just too active in your golf swing. So I'll look at how we clean up the takeaway, and a lot of this is going to be predicated on how we get your upper body turning better to the top of the backswing, because if you have your hand, the club this far in without turning your shoulders properly, then it's going to be really far in when you start turning your shoulders properly, because as you sort of roll this up to the top, you can kind of notice that you got a pretty good lower body action, pretty good hip turn, but your upper body, your upper center of gravity is sort of, pointed over here where I'd like to see it more wound up. And obviously the more your upper body winds up, the less you'll have to lift your arms up in this direction. It'll actually give you, envision this, if you turned your shoulder more and extended your spine with a little more leverage, your hands would actually be deeper. So the club's a little in and then a little picked up. I think you already know that, but we'll clean that up a little bit. A lot of that's going to be predicated on the body movement, but getting the hands and arms in the right spot will help support you moving your body better down the road. Okay, so where I'd like to get you is the upper body a little more wound up. So I'm going to give you a swing to look at here. You notice how Mac O'Grady's shoulders kind of stacked up in his center here. So that's kind of where we're going to get this right pec, right rib, more wound up so it's more behind you. And then your arms will actually have to do less with bigger body movement. You can kind of see how Mac's loaded into this right hip. The right rib is wound up behind him. But all he's really doing is supporting the weight of the club with his right side. Okay, so now here's what I want to look at. I want to trace your left shoulder. Now, as you turn better and get to the top of the backswing better, it's going to put you in a different spot to attack the golf ball from. And then we're going to get to where you can really compress it. So if I map your left shoulder from here, kind of notice that it sort of trended a little bit up from the top of the backswing. And then it's up even more here. So what happens is if the left side starts lifting, the right side starts crunching or collapsing. So then the club effectively gets sort of behind you. So it would cause you to sort of bottom out a little bit early or not quite attack the ground properly. So now watch this with Mac. Here's his left shoulder. You notice it went in that direction for a split second while he's leveling out. And what that allows him to do is keep the pressure on the shaft so that he doesn't lose his angles in the hands and arms. So he's still got a lot of pressure on the shaft there. I'll take him a little further. This left shoulder is level of where it was at the top of the backswing when the arms are about the same position here in these two pictures. But notice, this will strengthen out your left arm. Notice how locked out Mac's left arm is, and notice how much he's able to keep pressure on the shaft where you're kind of unloading your wrist angles. So what happens is if you unload your wrist angles and your right side's tipping back or crunching, it's going to cause your low point to have a tendency to be in this area at times. Okay, so now Mac comes into impact. Now the left shoulder starts coming up. But his center of gravity has moved to the bottom of the arc. So when he straightens his arms, the low point, matter of fact, the low point was probably about right here. Okay, so where the bottom of the arc is with an iron, obviously, is in front of the golf ball. So you can see here how much more your upper body's tipped back and the shoulders are angled up. So the left side's coming out more and the right side's crunching more than where Mac is. You can see just how much more level the shoulders are and how much less secondary spinal tilt he has, because he's not really trying to have any secondary spinal tilt the way it's traditionally thought about to this point in the golf swing. He'll start to use this side of the arc to thrust everything up. Now he'll start releasing his lower spine, upper spine, head and neck. But all in all, I mean, you got great foundation to kind of work with and play with and build with. I want to show you one more thing, kind of piggybacking on what I was mentioning. The club's a little in and underneath, then your hands lift up, then the right side starts collapsing, the left side starts lifting, and you can see how far underneath this golf club is. So the more the club is behind your hands here, the more shallow your angle of attack is going to be. And for you, that's going to cause you to bottom out back here more, where you know, Max got it going up his forearm, covering his bicep, but his hands are covering his right bicep here because of his hip turn, because of his body turn, his upper body. He gets the hands deeper here. Then they'll lift a little bit up here to get the left shoulder or the left arm on the shoulder plane. Then coming down, notice just how much more this shaft is on top of his right forearm, on top of his hands, and then kicking out in front of him here. You see how much that club's looking at the golf ball, where your club's kind of looking out in that direction. He's got it kind of looking right at where it's going. So it's just more in front of him. And just notice how less collapsed his right side is. You know, you can see here, we'll work on this down the road, but this right knee bends or kicks in. Well, what does that do to the right side of the body? You know, if the right knee kicks in, it lowers the entire right side of the body, where Mac's right knee is not kicking in, and his right side is in a much stronger position with the club right in front of him here. So just a few visuals. You know, notice the club's just to the right, you know, it's between his arms, just a little bit to the right side of his arms, but very much between his arms here. And then it kicks out in front of him because he's attacking down into the ground differently. So as we build up your right side, it'll look more like this. How the right shoulder's covering differently. But all in all, great foundation. I can tell you're an athlete. Yeah, you can see here, right knee flies in, this whole right side. It's kind of underneath, where Max is much taller. This distance here. You can kind of see just how his body is structured there. We'll get there. Okay, so that's all I got for this part. The second part, I'll hop on camera, and then I'll kind of bring this more together for you. So, thanks again.